In 1973, the small country of Bhutan, located in the Himalayas, produced one of the most collectible stamps in the world, a modest 33 1/3 vinyl record. When released, the stamps measured either 2 3/4 inches or 4 inches in diameter, making them one of the smallest playable records ever created. The stamps contain audio recordings of folk songs, as well as the history of the country in both Bhutanese and English. And on that English recording, we hear this voice.
The Kingdom of Bhutan, Drugyul, or Land of Dragons, is a
That's the
landlocked
voice of the
country
stamp's
18,000
creator.
square
And although
miles
these records
in the
are
heart
an
of the
interesting novelty, appealing to the surprisingly profitable market Venn diagram of stamp and vinyl collectors, the story behind the stamps and the man who is responsible for their existence is much more remarkable. It's a story about independence, globalization, American entrepreneurship, and most importantly of all, stamps.
Monarch, fourth in the dynasty, His Majesty King Jigme Sungay Wanchuk, succeeded his father to the throne in 1972 at the age of 18. A council of ministers assists the king in ruling the country. And the National Assembly, which is an independent...
Bert Todd was born in 1924 in Pittsburgh as an heir to an already large and lucrative steel-producing dynasty. As Todd was approaching young adulthood, he began to search for a way to avoid working in the family business, eventually deciding to attend graduate school at Oxford University, despite not having the correct qualifications, or any qualifications really at all. To remedy this, Todd began the first of his many international escapades by flying to personally get approval from an Oxford official who was at that time on his honeymoon in Norway. At university, Todd met Ashi Kasang Shodendorfi, the future queen of Bhutan. The two would become good friends, so much so that Shodendorfi even invited Todd to visit the country. But there was just one problem.
There were few roads into the country and no airfields.
Although making it to India via hitchhiking through Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, Todd was forced to walk the last leg of the journey into Bhutan, becoming the first American ever to enter the Kingdom of the Clouds. Todd fell in love with Bhutan almost immediately, admiring its centuries-old way of culture and its unique architectural style. Despite this beauty, however, Bhutan as a whole was yet to be really viewed as an independent and sovereign kingdom to much of the world. The country didn't even have a formal postal system, and all mail leaving the kingdom had to be sent first to India before being distributed internationally. Todd decided to help the country develop by going before the World Bank in Washington to ask for a $10 million loan, but the request was denied because of Bhutan's border disputes with the much larger and much more influential India. A US official, however, recommended that the country begin to print its own stamps. This method had worked out to gain revenue for countries like Monaco and San Marino. As much as Bhutan wanted the revenue from the stamps, the kingdom's leaders were naturally skeptical. They were like,
Stamps? Really? How much money could stickers you don't even think about really make for a country?
the stamps would eventually be approved for an entirely different reason, like I've talked about before. Up to this point, Bhutan, although politically independent, wasn't fully recognized by many countries and believed that the stamps were one route to securing their spot on the world stage. Todd was therefore placed in charge of the entire operation, despite having little knowledge about international mailing, design, or even stamp collecting. In 1962, the first 6 official stamps were printed, featuring a postal runner, the crest of Bhutan, an archer, a wild yak, a map of the country, and the Maharajan fortress and monastery. Despite the interesting designs and artwork, the stamps did little to impress the world's philatelics. But this wouldn't discourage a pure-blood American capitalist like Todd. After he had graduated from Oxford, Todd began to open up many different markets throughout East Asia for American investors. This was a man who knew business, the man who could sell seaweed in Singapore, cars in Calcutta, and firewater in Fiji, Why would stamps be any different? Todd understood that for any product to be successful, it needed to be unique. He began to think of the stamp as not just a piece of paper that would be attached to postage, but as a form of a receipt for a service.
Whoa, what?
In the world of mail, this was radical. It opened the door for stamps to be almost any shape or size or design, which can be produced within the limits of modern technology, thus beginning his life's work of helping to finance, design, and create new and interesting stamps.
So he realized he needed to do something which was going to get more attention, and he started producing really quite wacky ideas. He did a series of Buddhist banners printed on silk, a range of scented stamps, some die-stamped plastic three-dimensional stamps representing traditional Bhutanese sculptures. And then the crowning glory, really, in 1972, he had the idea of doing these talking stamps.
That was Chris May, a writer and researcher for thevinylfactory.com. The new stamps that Todd was creating were just weird enough to interest collectors. Although not extremely successful initially, they would eventually become cult collector's items and would help the financing of the country's first, and so far only, airport, Paro International, located in the nation's capital. In fact, because of these stamps, Bhutan was able to finance many different infrastructure projects, such as roads, hospitals, and electrical grids. Today, the country boasts one of the happiest populations in the world. Bert Todd died in 2006, but not before thinking up one more stamp idea for the isolated kingdom to bring it into the 21st century. A 3-inch CD-ROM, not much bigger than the original vinyl stamps. Like the famous 1972 stamps, these small circles contain audio of the national anthem as well as a brief history of the country. The stamps were designed by Frances Todd Stewart, Bert's daughter, carrying on the legacy of showing the isolated and forgotten country of Bhutan to the world through its most endearing and historical asset: stamps.